In video 2, we gave the inward path its fairest hearing. That is the self-realization, which is the claim that you are already divine and only need to awaken. Today we turn to path 2, that is surrender, the path that looks beyond the self. But here we have to be careful because surrender is the most counterfeited word in spirituality. Almost every tradition uses it. Almost none mean the same thing by it. So this video does two jobs: show you what genuine surrender actually is and expose the versions that only look like surrender while keeping the self firmly on the throne. Start with the core, where the inward path says the problem is ignorance. Path 2 says the problem is deeper. The self has placed itself at the center of a universe it did not make and cannot hold. Surrender is not self-improvement. It is not even self-transcendence. It is the deliberate decentering of the self, stepping down from the throne you were never meant to occupy. It says, I am not the source, I am not the answer. There is a reality greater than me, personal and good, and my life is found not in realizing myself, but in entrusting myself to that reality. This is a complete reversal of the inward path. Self-realization moves toward dig deeper, uncover the divine you already are. Surrender moves outward, receive what you could never generate. One says the treasure is buried inside you. The other says the treasure is a person outside you who gives himself freely. Jesus put it as a paradox that offends the inward path directly. Whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. Matthew 16:25. You do not find the self by grasping it. You find it by letting it go into trustworthy hands. Now the danger. There is a kind of surrender that is really just path 1 in disguise. It uses the language of letting go, but the goal is still self-optimization. Surrender your stress so you can perform better. Let go of your ego so you can feel more peace. Submit to the practice so you can get the result you want. Notice what has happened. The self never actually left the throne. It just hired surrender as a better employee. That is not path 2. That is the inward path wearing devotion's clothing, and it is everywhere. This is exactly why in video 1, we did not approve the Bhagavad Gita as path 2, even though it uses surrender language. The Gita's climax calls Arjun to take refuge in Krishna. It sounds like surrender, but look at the frame. It is surrender within a system aimed at Arjun's own equanimity and detached action to a teacher avatar inside a cyclical cosmos, not to a personal God who forgives relational betrayal. Bhakti and Prapatti, devotion and self-giving, are real and sincere, but when the object is an impersonal absolute, a technique, or your own realized nature, the surrender still terminates in the self. The object of trust changes everything. So here is the test that cuts through every counterfeit. Do not ask, does this path use surrender language? Ask, to whom or to what am I actually surrendering, and what happens to the self in the end? Surrender to a technique, the self still runs the technique. Surrender to an impersonal oneness, the self dissolves, but there is no one to receive you. Surrender to your own deepest self, you never left the throne. Only surrender to a personal God who is genuinely other than you, who can receive your trust and answer it, moves you off the throne without erasing you. This is why path 2, done honestly, requires a personal God. You cannot surrender to a principle. You cannot entrust yourself to an abstraction. Trust, real trust, is relational. It needs someone on the other end. The biblical God is not the ground of being you dissolve into. He is a person who speaks, hears, and responds. Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. That command only makes sense if the Lord is a who, not a what. Surrender without a personal other is just a more elegant form of self-management. Scripture's deepest picture of surrender is not a technique. It is a garden. In Gethsemane, Jesus in anguish prays, "Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me. Yet not my will, but yours be done." Luke 22:42. Notice everything here. There is a real self with real desires. He does not pretend the cup doesn't hurt. There is a real other, Father, and there is real trust. Not my will, but yours. This is surrender with the self fully intact, fully honest, and fully entrusted. The inward path dissolves the self. The gospel keeps the self and hands it over in love. Let me clear away two misunderstandings. Surrender is not passivity. Jesus in Gethsemane then rises and acts decisively, and it is not self-erasure. The goal is not to annihilate the self, but to restore it to its right place. Where the inward path aims to dissolve the I as illusion, path 2 says the I is real, made for relationship, and healed precisely by trusting someone greater. You do not vanish. You are received. Philippians 2 says, Christ emptied himself and was then exalted. Self-giving is not the loss of the self. It is the self finally becoming what it was made to be. And here is what surrender opens that self-realization structurally cannot. Grace. If the answer is inside you, then everything depends on your effort, your discipline, your insight, your awakening. But if the answer is a person who gives himself freely, then you can receive what you could never achieve. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. The inward path has no category for that sentence. It cannot make sense of power arriving through weakness, because weakness is exactly what it is trying to overcome. Surrender can, because surrender was never about your strength. The ego is clever. It will counterfeit surrender in a dozen ways. Spiritual bypassing, using let go and let God to avoid dealing with real wrong. Submission to a guru or a group which just relocates control. Surrender as a performance, a way to feel humble and be admired for it. Even Christian language can be hijacked. Surrendering to God as a technique to get the life you want. In every case, ask the test again. Who is on the throne when it's over? If the answer is still you, dressed in more spiritual clothes, it was never path 2. Here is the honest difficulty. Self-realization, for all its rigor, keeps you in control. It is your practice, your progress, your awakening. Surrender takes that away. You cannot surrender on your own terms, or it isn't surrender. You cannot control the one you're trusting or you're not really trusting. This is why the inward path is, in one sense, more comfortable. It never asks you to depend on anyone. Path 2 does. It asks you to stake your life on a God you cannot manage. That is not weakness. It is the hardest and most honest thing a self-centered creature can do. Let me be fair, as I've promised throughout. The devotion of Bhakti is often breathtakingly sincere. Tears, longing, a lifetime of love poured toward the divine. I will not mock that. Prapatti, total self-giving, reaches for something genuinely beautiful. My argument is not that Hindu devotees are insincere. Many put lukewarm Christians to shame. My argument is narrower and more serious. Sincerity does not settle the object. You can surrender your whole heart to something that cannot ultimately receive it. The tragedy is not too little devotion. It is devotion aimed where relationship cannot finally be returned. So sit with this before the next video. Everyone surrenders to something, a goal, a fear, an image of themselves, a practice. a person. The question is never whether you will surrender. It is to whom or to what, and whether that recipient can actually catch you. Can it forgive you? Can it love you back? Can it hold your life when you finally let go? A technique cannot. An abstraction cannot. Your own deepest self, the very thing that needs rescuing, cannot. Only a personal God who is truly other than you and truly good can receive the weight of a surrendered life. Here is where this video leaves us. Surrender is the shape of path 2, but only surrender to the right one is path 2. The counterfeit is everywhere. Surrender that still serves the self, devotion aimed at a teacher, a technique, an impersonal absolute, or your own divinity. All of it, however sincere, collapses back into the inward path, the self trying to save itself with subtler tools. I believe the ultimate reality is personal, relational, and has revealed himself in Jesus, the God of Gethsemane who surrendered first for us. Surrender to him is not weakness and not self-erasure. It is the only path to forgiveness, trust, and restored relationship.